Hello, love leaders. Welcome to the Love Leading Podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Shanon Roberts. I am the host for this podcast, and welcome to the very first episode. I'm so excited to further any kind of discussions about making sure that your most important relationship has the connection that you're designed for, that you are able to walk in a place of learning how to love well and have and enjoy that intimate bond that God designed. And so we are going to be starting the process of walking through principles, walking through biblical truth, walking through discussions with experts in the field and other people that are out in the community, exemplifying and influencing others to love well in their areas of expertise and industry. And so today, what I just wanted to do is just introduce myself to you. So born and raised in the Midwest, Oklahoma. My parents divorced when I was really young. And I had a friend of the family that introduced me to church and the gospel. And I heard the message that I had a heavenly Father that would never leave or forsake me. And so from a very young age, that influence led and guided me throughout my childhood and on into throughout my adult life as well. The other thing is I just happened to be good at school. And so with those two environments, we call those resiliency factors in my life, having come from a divorced family. And those were the environments that I was able to kind of hide in, find respite in, and ultimately lead, guide, and influence me in the direction and the pursuit that I did throughout my adult life. I chose counseling as a field of pursuit when I was in my undergraduate degree at Oklahoma Baptist University. I furthered that education as a professional counseling master's major at University of South Alabama. And on up into a little bit after my career pursuit and I started my family, I went back and specifically studied professional counseling and did my PhD research at Liberty University, desiring to integrate a Christian worldview into the psychological field of counseling intervention. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that later. I don't want to totally bore you from the right get-go. But as I continue to grow professionally and personally in this arena of counseling and counseling intervention, my roots landed in Tampa, Florida, where I am still today, having opened up a Christian counseling clinic, which was Christian Counseling of South Tampa, which I owned and operated for about 16 years and actually sold that like 2 weeks before the quarantine pandemic set in. So this new adventure of venturing out into the online world, timing kind of scary, but also perfectly, because as we well know, the area of mental health just became so much more pertinent and needed for people during those times. And the isolation that families and couples tended to feel thrown in together under one roof really heightened the need for options, especially online. And so I'm telling you more about the programming that I was able to develop during those times. And so in so doing, in working with couples for over 30 years, I'll just got to be honest. I mean, I would work with them, you would see improvement, and then within 6 months of time, they would like bounce back in. They would boomerang back in, and some of them would be right back in the same place that, they had originally come in for. And so frustrating as all that is, and I hope that I don't discourage you from counseling, because it has really, really developed over the course of these last 30 years since I have even been a part of it. But it was really important to me that I couldn't warranty my work And so I went back to the driving forces and did the research, and I found an intervention that was seeing a phenomenal amount of success, 90%. And so I went through the process of being trained specifically in that couples intervention. It's emotionally focused therapy. I hope that you are able to go look it up and understand the empirical support that's out there, because God really does reveal himself, not only through his spoken word, the Bible, but also his created word, science. And they do not disagree. So I began working with couples under this intervention, began seeing, wow, I have the specific privilege of being in a front row seat, watching the health and healing of a relationship shift and change and move for the better. And that we are going to be furthering the discussion about what that looks like, why it's important, and all of the other people that you will be able to hear from that actually have walked this path. So I hope that you are wanting and willing to learn how to love well in your most important relationship, because this is where you come for all those encouragements, tips, and new developments biblically and scientifically. So keep coming back to hear more and more and more. And so when I went to my PhD program, emotionally focused therapy in and of itself is typically a secular intervention. And because I work both with secular clients and faith-based clients, it was really important that I gave a spiritual component to the work that I do in the rooms with those particular couples. And so I inserted the spiritual component to the emotionally focused therapy intervention under the supervision of Dr. Sharon May, and tested that approach to be able to see if it had equally as much efficacy or success as the secular model in and of itself. And yes, it did. Not that you would ever want to go back and read that PhD. Just take it from me. That dissertation is 150-page long. It was a 7-year venture. But I'm happy to say from there, I was able, from my research, from my experience in intervention with the model, I was able to write my own program, Marriage Made Whole. And I work with couples in a unique kind of way, having now the capacity to have a socially accepted platform virtually, some of during COVID strictly. It really has allowed people to grow very comfortable with this kind of setting. Telehealth boomed, it skyrocketed during that time. And so it allowed my market to start being a little bit more far reaching outside of the Tampa Bay area. And also having worked with couples in the traditional outpatient type of setting, uh, every week for an hour or so, or maybe every other week for an hour or so, working with clients, 4 to 6 months at a time, sometimes can feel very much, if a couple is in crisis, very much like you're walking through mud. And it takes a while to kind of start trickling out and getting in there and getting the work started. And couples, quite frankly, sometimes got a little disillusioned or disappointed, or they maybe got a portion of the relief and then couldn't prioritize it. Let's be honest, there was 3 professional calendars in the room, husband, wife, and me. And so a lot of times just getting those on a consistent enough basis to see the results didn't quite happen. And so I transitioned through my experience and through the most recent research that a lot of times couples really need a more intensive model. And so the program that I work with, not only do I offer a total virtual online experience, but I also offer the opportunity for them to come work with me for 2 days as a kickstart to that online follow-up program. And so they'll travel here from Tampa to Tampa. We'll work 2 days in a row, 16 hours, which is equitable to 6 months worth of counseling. And then they have the ability to go back to their home and follow up with their 6-month follow-up program online. This gives them a whole lot of options. They get all of the intervention at the very beginning of counseling. So being able to put the oxygen mask on the face immediately. They get to come outside of their communities, so they get the luxury of anonymity and confidentiality, and the option of working with a counselor that they feel is the right fit, rather than being confined to finding one only locally. 40% of the effectiveness of counseling is just finding the right fit with the right counselor. So I am able to give, these couples that are traveling from anywhere a 30-minute free consult so they can make a really good decision for themselves. They come in, I work with them for the 2 days, and then they're able to do the follow-up program when they return virtually. And so I have found that this has been my life purpose and calling. I absolutely adore what I do. It is a privilege and an honor to partner with people, sometimes in their most very sensitive places, carrying them through a really dark time, but also incorporating the hope that you will also get to hear in this podcast. So if any of this applies for you, if you want to take away on a very consistent basis, weekly encouragement, weekly hope, weekly professional tips, interventions that we are able to talk through with other experts in the field that further this discussion, then this is where you'll need to land. So please subscribe as we begin the process of really creating the close connection of the most important relationship that God designed, deepening those intimacies on every level, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, sexually, and it's all here, right here in the Love Leading podcast. So welcome. It is my honor. I'm Dr. Shanon Roberts. We'll see you next time.